if I'm born of two parents, my two parents became one flesh, me, right, as the offspring. The two became one offspring. Or you can look at it from a different point where the two are trading in a marriage. I'm talking about a physical marriage, right? The two shall become one flesh. You can look at it either way. Either the offspring is the one flesh from the marriage, or the two actually becoming one. You know, it's like they have the same physical body. That is reproduction. So from a worldly perspective, that's what the lukewarm have a tendency to do. They have a tendency to want to be involved in Gentile reproduction of the American dream, or just flat out, reproduction. Okay. What else? If the lukewarm have a dual nature, so the reproduction associated with is kind of the knockoff of being priests. That's reproduction. Okay, you think about like the high priestess of a false idol temple was involved in what? Reproduction. Okay. So what's the other dual aspect? Kings. So how I'm sorry. Let's make sure that we're going with this in the right direction. The kings corresponds to the lukewarm group being very religious. Well, isn't that reproduction? No. What did the Sadducees and Pharisees want to do with their very religious nature? They wanted to govern Israel, didn't they? So they were very religious. In and of themselves, they wanted to justify they were super to-do list people. They wanted to justify themselves before God by having an extensive to-do list and being professionals at that to-do list. Okay, so we're talking about the lukewarm group. They're either very worldly, pertaining to reproduction, or they're very religious, pertaining to governance. How does being very religious pertain to governance? Essentially, oops, there goes my glasses. Essentially, they wanted to govern Israel through their super religious laws, right? That's how they practiced their kingship, very religious.
But they were governing Israel through their very religious laws and practices.
So the tendency in the lukewarm group is to be one of the two. So think about the parable of the parable of the prodigal son. The prodigal son, the younger son, was very worldly, right? He wanted to go out into the world, sell his inheritance. He didn't care too much about his inheritance and be involved in worldly reproduction. Okay, so the other one, perhaps maybe what the older son was a bit getting into was being very religious and being very controlling. Okay, and that pertains to governance. So what we just read, I really do need to get another pair of glasses because this is a disaster. Oh, maybe they're down there. Okay, found it. Pardon me. So we just read. Could you read the verse that we just read before?
18:4?
Yeah, 18:4.
I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not participate in her sins and receive of her plagues."
Okay, so coming out of her, my people, that's this conscious decision that we do. It's not just a gathering at the end of this age. That's what I used to teach a long time ago. Okay, come out of her, my people. What is that? Revelation 18:4?
Right.
Okay, come out of her, my people, pertains to coming out of this system that's becoming lukewarm. It's migrating from being kings and priests to or a form of that in lap 1, now to the lukewarm version, either being very worldly or very religious. We can see that. So come out of her, my people. How do we do that? That's this division of soul and spirit, where this gateway opens, and now we can come out of this tendency to try, for the warring of the flesh against the spirit and the spirit against the flesh. Like I said before, they press together against each other while we're in lap 1. In lap 2, now we're going to focus on what lies between two distinct things. What lies between the two distinct things? My spirit and my soul are me, body, soul, and spirit, but they're very distinct and very different. Remember we talked about that? We gave the analogy, my spirit's kind of like the woods when I go camping, and my soul's kind of like if I decided to make a painting of the woods when I went camping. It's an image of the woods, but that painting is certainly not the woods, right? So my soul and my spirit are very different things, even though they're me. So whenever you have two completely different things that are together, the best design that God does is to put gateways in between those. So I have a way, just like my house has a door as a gateway between my house and the outside, right? I'm not going to go through the wall. The best thing for me to do is to go through the door. Okay? So, and remind me to get to the born again verses. We'll go to those. So that gateway opens, that allows a degree of freedom. The relationship between my soul and my spirit is now at a greater distance. That's a good thing. Because now my soul and my spirit can communicate through that gateway, and my soul and my spirit can enter and exit through that gateway. So my soul can enter into my spirit through the gateway, so that I am operating in the laws of my spirit, which are higher than the laws on the earth. And so I'll just draw these little arrows here back and forth. That's what we're trying to do with this gateway. It allows movement back and forth. It's a much greater degree of freedom, and operating at a higher system of laws. So we wrote that. The distance increases, and the freedom increases because there's back and forth motion between the spirit and the soul. My soul can now enter into my spirit. Once I do that, now I'm governed by the higher spiritual laws. By higher spiritual laws. There's always going to be some laws. If we don't have, on whatever platform we're on, even as we increase in the levels, there's always going to be rules and laws and boundaries. If there's not, then there's no way we can have success. We've given this analogy before. If I'm Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player, or whoever that is, and I play basketball and there's no referees and there's no rules, right? Who's going to win? Whoever is the meanest, baddest dude doesn't even have to play basketball. All he has to do is just basically, render the other person unconscious, and then they're free to win, right?
But there would be no way to define what winning is if there's no judge.
Exactly. So if you don't have any rules, you don't have any laws, you don't have any referees, then there's no way for success. There's no way to win, you see. So at any level of trading, there's always, so for example, the 10 virgins. I talked about that in the video that I just posted on my YouTube channel. So the 10 virgins, the 5 virgins that trade in their oil to go up to the next level, they'll receive crowns, and what are they going to do with the crowns? Cast them God's feet, right? They're going to keep trading. So there's laws and, the expectation that God has to receive more trade from you at a higher level, your crown instead of your oil, right? That's part of the law. Those laws and expectations are part of the system of governance at whatever level you're operating with God. There has to be. Otherwise, there's no way to win. So we want to have a way to win at every level. So incidentally, what is I'm talking off the cuff right now. In the parable of the 10 virgins, what are the virgins trading in?
Oil.
Oil. What does the oil typically represent in lap 1? They're going to say the Holy Spirit, right? Would I trade God? I'm not going to trade God. I'm not going to trade with God. So anyways, just keep in mind that's crowns and oil refer to the valuable things that I have that I want to trade with. Now, in trading, there's also a whole another component of trading where we trade with things that we wouldn't normally think as valuable, but very truthful. And we'll get to that some other day. Okay, so we're talking about the dual nature we've been talking about gateways, and we've been talking about the dual nature of God, the dual nature of each group. So the hot group, we will fulfill dual roles as priests and kings. We were speaking about the fact that kings associated with governance. Priests are associated with reproduction. Again, if I help somebody get born again, I'm helping to reproduce them into the kingdom of God. Okay? Reproduction, a seed. If a seed is planted on the inside of me, is that governance or reproduction?
Reproduction.
Reproduction, right? If I'm in agriculture and I plant seeds, I'm trying to reproduce that plant with the seeds. Reproduction, okay? So we're going to be operating in those two different roles. We were saying that the lukewarm, in their sort of distorted dual nature, they're going to be either very worldly and worldly reproduction, or they're going to be very religious, trying to control people through religion. That's what the Sadducees and Pharisees did. Sodom and Gomorrah was a type of the lukewarm. Admah, Zeboam, Zoar, Sodom and Gomorrah, those were the cities of the plain. They were the quintessential lukewarm group right there in the area of Jerusalem. They had backslidden. Okay, they weren't the villains. Remember that title king of nations who came down to take a spoil from them. They were the villains. But Sodom and Gomorrah were the backslidden. So they were very worldly. What were they engaging in? Reproduction, right? Okay. So how about the cold group? I'm just going to jot down that we do want to get to John 3, 1 through 8. But let's talk about the dual nature of the cold group. Without trying to get too political here, dual nature of the cold group.
Not to break your concentration, but you were just about to step on that lamb.
Oh, thank you. It's trash anyways. My glasses fell apart, so I got my metal glasses on instead of my plastic ones. All right. Let's go to that verse that talks about a house divided will not stand. Okay, so we will. Let's go to Matthew 12:25. Let's just start reading with Matthew 12:22 for us, David.
Then a demon-possessed man who was blind and mute was brought to Jesus, and he healed him, so that the mute man spoke and saw. All the crowds were amazed and were saying, "This man cannot be the son of David, can he?" But when the Pharisees heard this, they said, "This man casts out demons only by Beelzebub, but the ruler of," I think I mispronounced that word, Beelzebul.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We know
the
what you're
ruler,
talking about.
the ruler of the demons. And knowing their thoughts, Jesus said to them, "Any kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and any city or house divided against itself will not stand. If Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand?"
Okay. So this is what